grade 8 students. I am Miss Alexander, your social studies teacher. Welcome to lesson 4. Today we are continuing in our discussion on government, and we are looking at the subtopic, the functions of government. If you were unable to join us for the previous sessions, I encourage you to mark off chapter 5 in your New Horizon Book 2. And you can take a look at it after we would have completed our session today. And like that, you would be able to catch up on whatever you would have missed out. So we have some friends that are rejoining us. They would have been here for the previous sessions. And so I'm going to ask them a few questions, and hopefully they will be able to help us today, so that those of you who are joining us, you'd be able to catch up on some of the things that we did in lesson 3. So here we go for our quick recap. We have some true or false questions. So listen very keenly, and you respond by saying either true or false. So let's go. Our first question. An elector must be at least 15 years old to vote. True or false? Think about it. All right, for those of you who said false, you are correct. An elector must be at least 18 years old to vote. Our second question. The Guyana Elections Commission is responsible for the efficient functioning of the Permanent Secretariat, which shall comprise of the officials and employees of the Commission. True or false? About it. Take a few seconds more. All right, if you said true, you are correct. Good job. Now for some fill-in-the-blank questions. The first question. The polling staff checks the something to ensure that the individual's name is listed to vote. The polling staff checks the something to ensure that the individual's name is listed to vote. What is that something? We did mention it in the voter election process. Think about it. Take a few seconds more. All right, if you said list of electors, you are correct. Good job. Let's move on to the second and final question for the recap. Votes are cast using a something. Votes are cast using a something. What is the name of that something that voters would put their X on? Think about it. Take a few seconds more. All right, if you said ballot paper, you are correct. Good job. I'm very glad that you remembered some of the key points of our previous discussion. You did great, and I'm very proud of you. Let's get into today's session as we look at the functions of government. During this lesson, you may want to pay keen attention to words such as branch of government, executive, and cabinet. In this lesson, you will be given takeaway activities to complete. It may require you to work independently or seek assistance of others as you research to gather information. These activities are aimed to help you have a better understanding of the concepts and apply the topic to our society. What are the objectives? Students should be able to 1. Identify the branches of government. 2. demonstrate an understanding of and explain the composition of cabinet. And 3, list the functions of cabinet. So let's get right into it. Branches of government. Branches of government is the term used to refer to the organizational structure of government. Guyana's system of government is a democratic one, and you would recall we mentioned that in our previous lesson. In a constitutional democracy, power is divided so that the legislature makes the laws, the executive authority enforces and carries them out, and the judiciary operates independently. So when we speak of the branches of government, you can visualize government perhaps as a tree, a wonderful flourishing tree with only 3 branches. And so on those 3 branches, they're bearing their own fruits, which means that they have their own functions, they have their own purpose for which they exist. And so with this tree, all of the 3 branches are very important. Should any of the branches break or fall away, it affects the entire tree. It affects the beauty of the tree. It affects the productivity and the fruitfulness of the tree. So whenever you think of the branches of government, you can perhaps just think of government as a wonderful flourishing tree. And it needs all 3 of those branches to work effectively. I trust that the imagery would have helped you a little bit. No one branch can control all the power in a democratic system. So you will find that each branch has its own separate power, and so it carries out its work. The same way you would find that on a tree, the fruits are all distributed and there is no one branch that holds all the fruits. It's the same thing when we think about branches of government. This is referred to as separation of powers. And so, if you take a look at the organizational structure of government, you will find that at the top, it's the executive or the head of state. And then you have 3 branches, like we mentioned, the legislative, the executive, and the judiciary. Under the legislative, we have Parliament, and we also have other constitutional bodies. You will learn more of that in one of our next lessons. Under the executive, we have the cabinet, the office of the president, we have ministries, and we also have the Guyana Defense Force. You will also learn more about the executive in just a little bit. And under the judiciary, we have the hierarchy of courts. We have the Court of Appeal, the Supreme or High Court, and the Magistrates' Court. In another lesson, you will learn more about the judiciary. So, let's get into understanding a little bit more about the executive. The executive branch of government is concerned with making policies and ensuring that they are carried out. Executive authority is exercised by the president, who appoints and supervises the Prime Minister and other ministers of Cabinet. Cabinet is the body known as the executive branch of government. So I know that some of you are quite familiar with the term cabinet because perhaps you heard your parents mentioning that you have a cabinet at home. But in this case, the term cabinet is used quite differently. And instead, cabinet is associated with the body known as the executive branch of government. So there you learned something new today. The cabinet is made up of the following persons: the president, the prime minister, senior ministers, and selected ministers. It is important to note that under the Guyana's constitution, the president is both the head of state and head of government of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana. As the head of the executive, the president is not permitted to be a member of the National Assembly. However, he or she may address it at any time or have his address read by any member they may designate at a convenient time for the assembly. On the other hand, the Prime Minister is required to be a member of the assembly. In practice, most of the other ministers are also members. Those who are not members serve as non-elected members, which permits them to debate but not to vote. So what are the functions of cabinet, as we would have just mentioned? Cabinet has three important functions to perform. One, it decides on appropriate policies or strategies it would employ to develop the country. Two, it presents such policies to Parliament. And three, it defends those policies in Parliament. Now, for one of your takeaway activities, you can go research on one of the policies that would have been presented in Parliament in some time past, whether recently or a few years back. You may choose a particular ministry, whether it's Ministry of Education, Ministry of Health, any of the ministries that you might be interested in, and see any of the policies that would have been presented to our Parliament. Now, here's another activity. And I know that you will do very well at this, so pay keen attention as I ask you the questions. We are going to match the ministry and the minister that is responsible for that particular ministry. I would have identified 4, and so we're going to do our quick activity on that. I will encourage you as well to check out the Parliament of Guyana's website to see other ministries that we also have in our government and the ministers that are responsible for those. But for today's activity, we are just selecting 4. So let's go. Can you name the Minister of Education? I know that you know this, so let's go. We have Ministry of Education, and on the other side, we have 4 names. So is it the Honorable Vindhya Prasad? Is it the Honorable Charles Ramson? Is it the Honorable Priya Manik Chand? Or is it the Honorable Dr. Frank Anthony? So think about it. Let's match them. Okay, so for the Ministry of Education, the minister that is responsible, if you said the Honorable Priya Manik Chan, you are correct. Good job. We also have the Ministry of Health. Now, we have the Honorable Vindhya Prasad, the Honorable Charles Ramson, and the Honorable Dr. Frank Anthony remaining. Who is our Minister of Health? Think about it. I know you would have heard him speak sometime on the news, or perhaps you might have seen a news clipping somewhere, or perhaps you might have already visited the Parliament website from a previous lesson. All right, if you said the Honorable Dr. Frank Anthony, you are correct. Good job. Our other ministry that we're going to look at is the Ministry of Culture, Youth and Sport. Now we have remaining the Honorable Vindhya Prasad and the Honorable Charles Ramson. Who is our Minister of Culture, Youth and Sport? This one should be easy. All right, if you said the Honorable Charles Ramson, you are correct. Good job. And that leaves us with the Ministry of Human Services and Social Security. And you can make the guess, yes, you are correct, if you already made the guess, that the minister responsible for that ministry is the Honorable Vindhya Prasad. Excellent. Give yourselves a wonderful tap on the shoulder. You did great. All right. So, here is another takeaway activity for this lesson. I'm very excited to see the results of these activities that you're going to complete. So first of all, I would like for you to visit the website of the Parliament of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana, like I've been mentioning throughout this lesson. Or you can investigate someone in your community or village to research more on ministries in government. You are going to provide at least 2 duties of each ministry we matched in the previous activity. So just to recap, the ministries that we looked at in the previous activity were the Ministry of Education, the Ministry of Health, the Ministry of Culture, Youth and Sport, and the Ministry of Human Services and Social Security. You're going to provide at least 2 duties of each of those ministries. And the third thing that you're going to do is to write a 1-page essay entitled My Plans as Minister. If you were honored to be selected to serve as minister of a ministry of your choice, which ministry would that be? Write 2 areas you would plan to work on to improve for the development of Guyana. Remember, you can select any ministry of your choice that is in government. It does not have to be one of the 4 that we would have spoken about in our previous activity. So let's sum up today's lesson. We learned that the branches of government is a term used to refer to the organizational structure of government. We also learned that no one branch can control all power in a democratic system. We also learned that the executive branch of government is headed by the president, and it is concerned with making policies and ensuring that they are carried out. We also learned that the cabinet is the body known as the executive branch of government. It is made up of the president, the prime minister, vice presidents, and ministers. We also learned that cabinet has 3 important functions to perform, and one of those functions is to decide on the appropriate policies or strategies it would employ to develop the country. Well, students, this has brought us to the end of today's lesson. I am really enjoying our learning experience together, and I do look forward to learning other aspects as to how our nation is governed. We will learn more about another branch of government in another lesson. Until next time, I'm Miss Alexander saying bye for now and see you in the next